Hi, I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte, and it's that time of year once again.
It is our spring membership drive here at NEPM,
where we ask you to take a few minutes to give back a little bit so that we can continue to bring you the great programming we've been creating at New England Public Media.
Because that's how public radio works. Most of the money we spend to run the station, not to mention the podcasts we're creating, comes from listener contributions. And the money we raise now will sustain us through the months ahead. So consider signing up as a member at nepm.org or calling 800-639-8850 if phones are more your thing.
We're not discriminating just because they aren't our thing.
Seriously, give me a website and I'm there.
Ditto.
Speaking of, that's just one of the many stories we've been able to bring you over the past 300-ish episodes.
So many episodes.
We got to go into the origin of the word ditto with the word nerd.
We learned about zhuzhes and poultry, which is its own kind of cultural language from England in theater and pirate culture.
We get to talk to our congressman every week. We get to taste wine with some of the best purveyors in the area.
That's the hard work we do for you.
We also get to go out and meet our farmers and find real cool, neat little gems sequestered throughout the 4 counties of Western Mass.
We also got to follow the story of the rebirth of the Iron Horse from the beginning to where we took you there live to the grand opening days. It's just that kind of stuff.
Exactly. But it's also bringing you more and more NEPM content every day. It's jazz. It's a new podcast, The Secrets We Keep. It's in the news roundup show, The Rundown.
Not to confuse you with directions.
And frankly, there's never a better time to contribute than right now. We're asking you to fit giving into your busy schedule to make the time to support NEPM now. Just 2 minutes and you can make a one-time gift, or even better, becoming a sustaining member of NEPM for as little as $5 or $10 a month.
Or more if you want to. Who are we to judge?
Sky's the limit, really.
Because there's so much more we want to do here at the show and at NEPM writ large, but we'll only be able to get them accomplished with your help and your generous donations.
Every contribution makes a difference to NEPM and our ability to inform you of what's happening in Western Mass and around the globe. Giving what you can really does help.
So head over to nepm.org or call 800-639-8850 and give today to ensure that NEPM is always on the radio.
And in your podcast feeds.
Right.
And now, on with the show.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, helping customers make the switch to solar for savings, energy security, and tax incentives. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Today on the Fabulous 413, we're hanging out with some familiar faces.
Because we missed them during our time away.
Is this like when you cut sugar out of your diet and then just pound a pint of ice cream because you missed it?
Kind of, I guess.
In that case, we should absolutely hang out with the word nerd, because Emily Brewster can totally dress up your vocab with the origin of the word zhuzh.
And we should totally hit up our CISA friends and head to Sunderland to check out the only commercial poultry processing plant in Western Mass, Reed's Farm.
And given that it's Thursday, and that is the day on Fabulous 413 where we politics, we should probably hang out on Capitol Hill for a bit.
Hey, how are you?
Good, and you?
Living the dream.
You're in D.C.?
Yeah.
Is that why you sent Kobe from your Northampton office to the grand opening of the Iron Horse last night?
Yeah, man, unfortunately, I'm stuck here. We're voting on bullshit, so someone has to be here to do that.
And Kobe gets to do all the cool stuff in the Fabulous 413. Time for our weekly check-in with U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, Worcester's own Congressman Jim McGovern. There have been some developments in a story that we've talked about week after week after week since October 7th, which is the ongoing war in Gaza. During the State of the Union address, actually, the Biden administration said they would set up a humanitarian aid pier off the coast of Israel. It looks like, as of this morning, that humanitarian aid pier has been set up. What are you hearing about whether or not this means more money will be allocated for humanitarian aid, or we'll be able to send more humanitarian aid to Gaza, where many are risking famine and starvation?
Well, money has been appropriated for humanitarian aid, and the problem really is getting that humanitarian aid to people in need. And this is an important development, but there are other places of entry that, quite frankly, continue to be blocked. And we continue to be very concerned about the situation in Rafah, where on one hand, the Israeli government is telling people they have to evacuate. And then on the other hand, there's really not a plan for some place for these people to go to avoid what sounds like Netanyahu trying to invade Rafah. So it's still a deeply concerning situation. But I appreciate President Biden talking about withholding these 2-ton bombs, which Israel has used and Netanyahu government has used in areas where there are civilian populations. These are 2-ton bombs that have a blast radius of about a quarter of a mile. And so dropping them in places like Rafah, where there's well over 1 million people, would result in these huge civilian casualties, which we need to do everything we can to avoid. I continue to be frustrated by some of my colleagues here in Washington that don't even mention the civilian death toll, the Palestinians who are being killed. And for those of us who also consider ourselves friends of Israel, this rising civilian death toll does nothing to weaken Hamas and does nothing to ensure Israel's long-term security.
Meanwhile, closer to home, with the arrest that happened last week at UMass and graduation looming around the corner, both at UMass and at Smith, both of which had large-scale protests and encampments. Smith did not end in arrest. You anticipating there will be problems with either of these commencement ceremonies? Have you spoken to any of the leadership at either of these campuses? I know Colson Whitehead, who was the acclaimed author, was supposed to be the commencement speaker, pulled out of the UMass graduation ceremony. We invited him on this show to give his commencement address if he wished to. He turned that down graciously. But do you anticipate there will be problems at either of these commencements?
Well, I hope not. I mean, I'm sure there'll be demonstrations, but I hope, that the graduation moves forward. You know my views about the arrest, which I think were regrettable. But we need to figure out a way forward here. And I think college presidents and chancellors need to reflect on how all this can be dealt with more constructively as we look to a new academic year. Young people feel strongly about what's happening. I cringe when I hear politicians kind of dismiss them as privileged and uninformed, or they have no idea what they're talking about. I mean, if you gave a quiz to members of Congress and asked them to find Israel or Gaza on a map, I bet you at least half of them would fail. So I want to credit the young people in terms of, I think, what motivates them, and that is they're seeing this horrific humanitarian crisis unfold. They're seeing people dying, and they're realizing that they're dying from bombs that their taxpayers paid for, and they want something different. Again, I understand the deep feelings, and I would expect there'd be some demonstration, but I hope that actual graduations aren't disrupted in a way that people can, receive their diplomas and their families can, celebrate this milestone with their kids.
Speaking with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, McGoverning with McGovern, some of the war in Gaza will certainly trickle into U.S. politics and the elections coming up. A big-ish news story in that regard yesterday with Biden and Trump announcing that they would debate on CNN on June 27th and then on ABC on September 10th. Donald Trump and his allies are upset that one of the debates won't be on Fox. RFK Jr., who's running for president, is upset that he doesn't think he's going to be a part of these debates. Do these debates matter?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I watched presidential debates for a long, long time, and the candidate I've usually supported going into the debates is the candidate I support at the end of the debate. I think sometimes debates are a little bit overrated. I mean, it's about performance and theatrics more than it is about policy and substance. And I think elections need to be more about policy and substance. I mean, I want a president who's not necessarily the best in terms of being able to tick off a one-liner. I want a president who's not going to blow up the world. Who's going to protect our democracy, who's going to help move our economy forward. And so I think we have to kind of keep all of this in perspective. At the end of the day, this election has to be about what's good for the country and what's good for the world. And I understand the frustration that people have with President Biden over what's happening in Gaza. But I do think that the fact that he's talking about withholding these 2-ton bombs, I believe is in part due to the concern that has been raised on a lot of college campuses across this country. I don't think Trump would be doing the same thing. I don't think Trump would care. And again, I also think that we have a lot to be grateful for in terms of investments and initiatives to combat climate change, infrastructure, all this kind of stuff. Biden's trying to tackle the student loan issue. And then there's this other issue, and that is democracy. I don't want this to be the last election of my lifetime.
Speaking of infrastructure, I know next week is Infrastructure Week for the Biden administration, and it's been something that's happened in administrations past. But if he was a real showman, he would have teamed it up with Shark Week or something and tried to figure out how to get the word out about the investments they've done in infrastructure. To that end, NEPM this week has been featuring a series called Short Staffed. The theme being that we hear so much about there are not enough workers right now and there are too many jobs. That seems to be the story for lots of industries in Western Mass when it comes to the service industry, when it comes to nursing. Have you heard about these shortfalls through your office, and what has your office and or the Biden administration done to support these businesses that have been looking to fill these gaps in their workforce?
Yeah, no, I hear it all over my district, in every field. I mean, you name it. I mean, people are looking for workers. And look, one of the ways that we can deal with this is to adjust our immigration laws to be able to help regularize the status of a number of the people who are here. Obviously, we're not talking about regularizing the status of people who are criminals or who are violent or who are on terrorist watch lists. But we're talking about a skilled workforce coming from other countries looking for a better life here for a number of reasons, and we ought to utilize them. Businesses are shutting down because they can't find a workforce. And we have a workforce right here. And so we have to find a way to get beyond the demagoguery surrounding immigration and understand that immigration reform, helping get more people into this country, is actually a good thing for our economy. We will all benefit from that. But that's the answer. I mean, a lot of these businesses are providing more and more incentive packages and actually paying higher salaries. That's a good thing. They're still not finding the workforce.
What about other issues surrounding the workforce development, like childcare? Any sort of investment in childcare or anything along those lines to help a workforce become developed?
It would, because there are a lot of people who are not entering the workforce because they have kids, and the childcare is either not available or it is unaffordable. I did a town meeting in Northbridge last Saturday, and somebody raised the issue of childcare, basically saying that all the childcare centers that are in the vicinity, are not only filled, but they have huge waiting lists. And she hasn't even had her child yet, and it may be a year or two out before she can get her child into childcare. And if it means her driving 45 minutes, or an hour to get her kid to childcare, then she's like, well, then there's this kind of cost-benefit, quality of life analysis we have to do. But it's frustrating because she wants to go back to work and needs to go back to work to be able to afford their mortgage and everything else. So childcare is an important part of that. And we're trying to get more and more federal investments to help provide more resources so we can see more child care centers pop up all across this country. But that is a big issue. Affordable housing is a big issue. There's an intersectionality here with a number of things. It's not just here's a body. But you're right, child care is one of the big issues.
We have a labor-related question from Deirdre Godfrey, who lives in Chicopee, not technically your district, although we have invited the congressman from that district on the show numbers of times. Deirdre writes, I'm one of more than 134,000 retired public servants in the Commonwealth who've been hurt by the government pension offset and the windfall elimination provision enactments that strip substantial Social Security earnings from teachers, firefighters, and police officers who receive a pension but who also earn Social Security before entering public service. In her case, she says, due to a 25% pension earned as a teacher, she lost nearly $600 a month from what she calls her meager Social Security earned in earlier years working in nonprofits. Now she says her rent is skyrocketing. She says you were a co-sponsor of H.R. 82, the bill to repeal the unfair WEP and GPO. As a ranking member of the House Rules Committee, do you intend to send it to the floor for a vote without alteration or amendments?
Well, if I were chairman of the Rules Committee, I could do more than I can as ranking member, because on the Rules Committee, it's 9 Republicans and 4 Democrats. So, I don't have the ability to do that right now. I would like to send it to the floor without changes. This is an issue that doesn't affect all 50 states. It's a handful of states. We're one of them. This change was made back in 1983 when Reagan was president. A lot of people didn't even take note of it because it kicked in a couple of years later. But my view is if you are vested in more than one pension, you are entitled to more than one pension. And in this case, the state pension plus Social Security, you shouldn't be penalized. There is a cost to this, but it seems to me there's also the issue of fairness and what is right. So I agree with her. I hope that if we have an opportunity to be able to take back the House, that we can move this forward. This bill, by the way, is referred to the House Ways and Means Committee. And if Congressman Neal is the ranking member on the Ways and Means Committee, hopefully he will be chair again. I think we'll have a better shot of being able to move this if he is chair and Hakeem Jeffries is speaker.
U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, taking questions even from the 1st Congressional District of Massachusetts from listeners like Deirdre in Chicopee. Joins us every Thursday. If you've got a question for the congressman, you can send it our way to thefab413@nepm.org. Thanks as always, Congressman.
All the best. We'll talk to you soon.
I do miss him being my congressman, I gotta admit.
Well,
I know.
Maybe we'll get your congressman on one of these days.
Coming up, giving our lexicon that little extra oomph when senior editor at Merriam-Webster, Emily Brewster, takes a closer look at the word zhuzh.
But first, we'll get a tour of the chickens and facilities at Reed Farm in Sunderland, the only commercial poultry processing plant in western Massachusetts, with proprietors Kat Chang and Peter Lesnicka.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
We are at Reed Farm in Sunderland with Kat Chang and Peter Lasnica. We've heard about this farm from other farmers.
A bunch
many
of other
times.
farmers, because you're the only commercial poultry processing plant in Western Mass.
And we're here with Jacob Nelson from CISA, the local hero folks. On my previous show, you had both come in and had this vision for a local chicken processing facility. And now we're in the vision complete or near complete. Tell us about where we are and what we're looking at.
So right now we are in our updated real break room. It used to be just a dusty garage with, the tractor was parked right here where this wall is. We actually have a sink and people can make coffee and tea and have their lunch in a nice actual finished space.
Mm-hmm. If there's a break room, I'm assuming that there must be enough employees to necessitate a break room. We've been doing an employment, filling the gaps through NEPM's news department about workplace needs and workers. How many people are working here?
Currently we have about 8 part-time workers and 2 full-time now, but we do anticipate once we go USDA in January of 2025 that we will need more workers.
Why does it take so long to get USDA certified?
Peter?
Just the amount of infrastructure you need and all the regulatory stuff.
So I poked my head out into the parking lot a second ago and opened the door, and it narrated that the front door was open. Maybe it'll do it again.
It will.
Front door open.
Thank you, USDA. No, but that is actually part of the regulatory process, right?
It's part of our security system, yes.
Which is you need to do from USDA. This is another thing that we hear about a lot, Jacob, and I'm sure you hear about it a lot too, which is, trying to be USDA organic. All the hoops you need to jump through to get that point can be a hindrance and cost a lot of money.
And there's real reasons that we do that, right? Like food safety is important and workplace safety is important. Oftentimes it's scale that becomes the issues. We have a lot of great farms that are operating at a small to medium scale here, and a lot of the regulations are written for huge farms. And I would imagine that some of these federal regulations are written for them. And you're trying to meet those needs here at your scale, and that might be just a little bit tricky.
What scale are you working at?
About 20,000 birds a year. And then with USDA, it'll be a lot more.
Once we're USDA, we can not only sell our own birds out of state, but our customers would be able to sell out of state as well. And we could take in other birds from out of state to process for them.
When we last spoke, you had a relatively small operation. Can you talk about the expansion between where you were at that last time, which was several years ago, to where we are now?
About 4 or 5 times bigger.
Yeah. You had a trailer or something, an abattoir trailer or something like that?
Yeah, we can even look at it.
Let's go check it out.
It was a shipping container. It's a little loud with the ice machines and the fan.
It's great. It makes everybody know that we're really here. Actually, it's all sound effects. We're conveniently located in a studio in Springfield.
Get me in a closet somewhere. You'll never know where we actually are. All the sounds we can make.
The building was empty, and we brought in this shipping container, which is a processing plant. Now it's
merged it with this building that already was here?
Yeah, it's kind of hidden now because we built everything around it.
So
We designed it from scratch, so it's all built to be one loop.
So it's built to grow. What percentage are we using of the capacity this can actually process again?
Like 10%.
What we're looking at right here, these are these metal cylindrical cones. This is the beginning of the end for the chicken, yes?
Yes. This is our bird holding area. It's air conditioned.
Darker, which keeps the birds calmer.
It's air conditioned and heated to keep the birds comfortable. And then they come over here on pallets. They go into these cones. So this is our scalder, which is on-demand hot water, and that loosens the feathers, and then they go in that, it looks like a washing machine. You throw the birds in there, 30 seconds later they come out looking like supermarket chicken.
That's a fast process.
What are some concerns about taking in birds from other states?
Yeah, so that's why we have this carefully designed livestock holding area where the birds come in one way and then there's no back and forth between these areas. This store here is closed in between. So everything is kept to the front of this building and then we can clean and sanitize it afterwards. And there's a flow to the plant to keep the biosecurity intact.
One of the big cool stories from a local food system perspective about Reed Farm ties right into what you said at the beginning, Khalees, where the reason that you've heard about these folks so often is that they are providing a really important service for these small farms at a place that's a bottleneck in the supply chain. It is a really big benefit to our local food system to have this infrastructure and to have this facility here. It opens up horizons for a lot of other farms to be raising poultry, and ultimately it probably is going to mean that we have more local chicken on grocery shelves around here.
And And it's really cool to see in the last few years, some farms that we started working with a couple years ago have grown.
And it really does address one of the two bottlenecks in the system, the other one being hatching.
We're at Reed Farm in Sunderland with the owners, Kat and Peter, who are giving us a grand tour of this only local chicken processing facility.
This is our freezer. I call it Siberia.
Don't lock me in. It is cold. The little bit of moisture on the soles of my shoes the second I stepped on the floor here froze to it.
We freeze everything in single layer to get a really nice quick freeze.
Preserves the quality.
I'm seeing chicken, but this one says Cornish game hen too.
So that is a small chicken.
Okay.
Is that what that actually means?
Oh, I thought it was a different type of thing.
It's just a younger chicken.
I thought it was an entirely different bird.
Me too.
Yeah, it's confusing, isn't it?
They go from that size to the one behind you in 2 weeks.
So Cornish game hen is just chicken.
Yeah.
Okay, way to mark it up on the menu, everybody.
Seriously?
It's marketing.
It takes 2 weeks to go from, I'm holding the two sizes in my hand right now, and one says it's 2 1/4 pounds, and the other one is almost 6 pounds. They'll put that weight on in like 2 weeks.
Yep.
That's amazing.
I know I do, especially if I went to Spain or something.
Oh my god, I need to be out of here.
Yeah, it's so cold in here. We're getting out of the freezer.
Yeah.
Woo!
Oh, my glasses are fogging.
My turkeys are done. That's just a poultry joke.
This is our walk-in, and it was the only walk-in we had for in the beginning.
So they chill before they freeze? or-
Exactly, and you can see these tanks are prepped for processing later.
I don't know if you did the same thing that I do when I know companies coming over and clean up real good, but you would not know that chickens were being processed in this facility at all. It's like totally spotless.
But that's a good sign. Like, you don't want to see the signs that things are happening because that means that bacteria and other things are happening.
Yeah, it doesn't smell like anything other than clean.
So this space hasn't been cleaned. We're actively,
We're still cutting.
up for the week. So
Oh yeah, there we go, good. Now it shows that you're actually doing work.
But this status of cleanliness is pretty standard for us. We try to keep things real clean here.
If I worked in this room, that hum would make me go to sleep. Sounds like my electric car backing up.
And
Yeah.
so all cut up packing happens in here. The chicken is not worked with at room temperature. It's always kept cold.
this is our storage cooler, which is kept at 31, 32.
This is another USDA thing. They don't want product to be stored in the same place where it's being worked. So we had to create a separate walk-in for specifically storage.
Oh, we're going out back now, I see.
Let's see, how bad is it raining?
We won't melt.
It's not that bad. When you came, it was heavier.
There's the door open door person. We are at Reed Farm in Sunderland, going out back to see their chickens where they do chicken processing here. The only 413-based chicken processing facility for the people raising chickens, including Kat and Peter here at Reed Farm.
Why did you want to raise chickens?
My mom bought a farm in 2012 in Amherst, and I was looking for something to do, so I started raising chickens. And then there was nowhere to process them. So it was, how hard can that be? And then
That was over a decade ago?
over a decade ago, yeah.
And this is obviously the sound of chickens over here. Wait a minute! No, those are sheep.
These are my Romeldale CVM. They're a heritage breed, and they're a fine wool breed.
Oh, nice.
I'm a hand spinner and knitter.
Wow.
So they help us.
Side hustle.
They help us maintain the pasture, and they also help me keep my sanity.
Do you have a wheel or do you drop?
I learned on drop, but I now have a wheel.
Okay, yarn nerds.
I'm just noticing that so many things on your farm are turquoise.
Oh yeah.
Just like blue turquoise, your sweatshirts, the floor of all the places we just walked through.
And this building we're heading
This,
towards.
yeah.
That might be my favorite color. But I will note that Peter likes to blame me for that, but he's the one who asks contractors if he can get it any color he wants.
We have not mentioned that you, Kat, and Peter are married, so
We are
there's a
married.
little bit more, even more collaboration that goes into running this farm, I think.
Apparently red is the standard color for like food processing and
Or classic-
slaughter.
it's classic farm
It's a
color.
classic farm color.
But also a little bit morbid.
And I didn't want to look at a red floor all day. So it's like, if there isn't a like real reason I have to have it red, I'm gonna have it a bright, happy color. So this is our winter house and year-round brooder.
Here's the chickens.
They're actually mostly male.
Oh,
Really?
Yes.
Why is that? Does it get real loud in here then?
No, they never get to the age where they're really crowing. The males tend to get bigger faster.
Are you raising these from eggs? Are you bringing eggs in? Or how do these chickens get here?
They come to us as day olds through the mail currently from Pennsylvania.
And that's another missing piece of the chicken puzzle here, right?
Yes. I mean, people have asked, why don't you just start from eggs on your own? But that's a whole other set of equipment and methods, and we have enough to deal with.
Yeah, right. About how many chickens would you estimate are here right now?
A few thousand.
They're 2 weeks apart.
These are almost 5 weeks old, and those are almost 7 weeks old.
When do they meet their end?
Yeah.
Between 6 to 8 weeks is when ours get processed.
Those are
Good luck, fellas.
2 days away for half of those.
So what happens is as they get huge and fill up the space, we pull half out, and then the remaining half has room to grow again. Then we get into the brooder.
Ooh, it's hot in here. And these are the little chickens.
Little baby chickens love heat, and they really need it to survive and to thrive.
Usually about 85 degrees in here.
This is animal welfare, right? This is part of like maintaining a humane environment that you're raising these birds in, right?
Yes, we want them to be as healthy as possible. We do fresh bedding every day, and we employ a deep litter method. I don't know, what is it, every couple months? Yeah. We'll clean it out, and all this stuff will then eventually go out to our compost program that we're developing now. We're creating all this material anyway for the welfare of our animals, and then instead of it being a waste product, we can spread it on our fields, or other farmers can use it on their fields.
And all year round, the chickens are in these, or does some of it happen outside?
Yes, for the brooders, and then as it gets nicer out, the older chickens will go outside. So if we walk out a little this way, you can see our compost pile. And then past that, you can see that little beige plastic sort of hut thing. That's where the sheep hang out when they're out there, because the ducks are going to go in that larger greenhouse.
Oh, so you're going to be raising ducks too?
Yes, so we'll have ducklings. I think they're coming in like a week or two. And then the sheep will keep the grass a little shorter for them.
What's different about raising ducks as opposed to raising chickens?
Ducks are hardier, for one, but they're also more difficult to process, because if you think about it, they're waterproof. Plucking is a little more involved, and we put a little bit of a dish soap in with the scalder, so that helps break down that waterproof barrier so that we can pluck them properly.
Jeez, now you've blown the lid off this whole Cornish game hen thing. I can't believe we fell for that for so long. It says hen right in it. We should have known.
Yeah. Kat and Peter, where can people find Reed Farm Chicken?
UMass was one of our wholesale customers, and we work with a lot of great nonprofits. It goes to River Valley every week. It goes to Corsello in East Hampton. He actually gets his with the feet on, because he's got that Italian, authentic butchery going on, so he likes having the feet on there so people can see that it's a chicken.
Also better for your stock.
And what if you are a backyard chickener and want your chickens processed? Are you taking it from people who are growing chickens in their backyard, or you need to be like a big farm to make it happen?
Yes, we are doing that. We do have pricing tiers for processing, and all that information's on our website.
Thanks so much for giving us a tour of this facility. I'm glad to see your dream in, I guess, egg form grow up into chicken form. In this case, the egg came first.
Yes, thank you so much for visiting us.
The folks at Reed Farm wanted to mention that the expansions to their farm were made possible through grants from the Mass Department of Agricultural Resources and the USDA. Every little bit does help in making these endeavors happen.
Sounds like Fun Drive talk.
Oh, NEPM.org or 800-639-8850.
Up next, the stage adds a little je ne sais quoi to your vocab as our resident wordster from Merriam-Webster takes us through the history of zhuzhes.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, offering co-op advantage checking with cash back on all purchases, plus secure debit card controls, all from the UMass 5 mobile banking app. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
Emily Brewster, resident wordster from Merriam-Webster. Our dictionary in Springfield. One of my favorite times of the year is when the dictionary releases a batch of new words into the world. And last year, there was a word that was released into the world officially, and that word is?
Zhuzh.
Zhuzh. How does one spell zhuzh?
One really has a couple options, but the usual way is Z-H-U-Z-H. zhoosh is also entered in our dictionary. And in truth, you can spell it in any number of ways. It also has had other spellings, including with like a tchu.
This is like a Scrabble dream word, and Merriam-Webster is the official Scrabble dictionary. Do you know if this has been entered into the Scrabble version of Merriam-Webster? Zhuzh in multiple spellings?
I don't think it has yet, because I'm thinking about when the most recent Scrabble dictionary came out. It will eventually be in it, which means that I think officially it is playable, but good luck finding two Z's.
Oh, yeah, right. Duh.
Right.
Dang it, I thought I had the best triple word score of all time.
Well, also, if you spell it with two O's and SH, it makes me feel like it should be zhuzh.
Zhuzh.
I feel like the ZHUZH spelling is the one that's most transparently renders that pronunciation.
Yes.
Yeah.
ZHUZH. So after saying this word zhuzh and spelling it multiple times, what does it mean?
The word functions as both a noun and a verb. The noun definition is a small improvement, adjustment, or addition that completes the overall look, taste, etc. of something. And then the verb is defined as to improve in flavor or appearance by way of a small improvement, adjustment, or addition. It's often used with up. The word was just featured in Merriam-Webster's Word of the Day a few days ago, which is what made me think that it would be fun for us to talk about it. That and the fact that Pride Month is coming up. And zhuzh is a word that maybe has a special connection to pride.
How is that?
Well, it had its origins in a particular argot called polare. Polari is the most common spelling, but again, that word also has many different spellings, because it, until really quite recently, was primarily just a spoken kind of inside language. Polari is British, and in the late 20th century, primarily gay slang.
So Polari is an umbrella term for gay slang?
No, it's a very particular kind of gay slang. And it didn't begin as gay slang. It actually originated among entertainers of the early 20th century, circus performers, theater types.
Theater types?
So gay slang.
Turn it off like a light switch, there it's gone. Good for you, my hetero side just won.
But like that means that like there's roots of it in like vaudeville and in minstrelsy, like not just gay culture, but a lot of overlap with gay culture.
Yeah, and then also with sailors too. Polari is fascinating, and zhuzh is this word, one of the few words that I know of that has actually made it from Polari into mainstream English. Now, it ran as word of the day. We got an email from someone who complained about the word. They didn't like it because most of the word of the day words, which if you're not subscribers, you really should be. The word of the day is a very good free service that Merriam-Webster provides.
Also, shameless plug for Peter Sokolowski's, I think, longest running podcast of all time, right? Jazz host here at NEPM, but editor at Merriam-Webster, continuing to do this podcast pretty much daily, right?
Is it the longest running podcast of all time?
It actually is.
Whoa.
It actually is, but
right out
it's
of Springfield.
So short that I think he looked into whether or not it would qualify for some kind of recognition as being the longest, but it's very brief because it's just the portion of the word of the day, which is a small, unobtrusive vocabulary exploration that you can make a part of your everyday life.
So you can subscribe to the reading word of the day, or Peter Sokolowski, our jazz host, who's also from Merriam-Webster, will read you zhuzh on when that's the word of the day, amongst other words.
Amongst other words.
Jazz at 8. Jazz at 8. Jazz at 8.
Where's the earliest instance that we start seeing Polari as its own vernacular?
Yeah, it definitely is. In the 1960s, there was this radio comedy show in the UK called Round the Horn. There are these two characters, Julian and Sandy, and they used Polari. They were these out-of-work actors, and it was apparently this very, very funny show.
Oh, wow, we do our own edition of Shakespeare, don't we? Yes. We've rewritten it ourselves in up-to-date Polari. Includes such things as Much Ado About Nanty, All's Boner That Ends Boner, Two Homies of Verona, and As They Like It.
Isn't that as you like it?
Not really, but live and let live, I say.
There's a fantastic book called Fabulosa.
It's right up our alley.
Paul Baker wrote this book. He's really the authority, as far as I know, on Polari. But here's an example. Bona tu vara your dolly old eek. means nice to see your pretty old face.
I love that.
Yeah. Face in this case is translated into eek, and it's because face is sometimes in Polari, words are rendered by spelling them backwards and then shortening them. So that's how you get eek out of face. You spell it backwards first and then you lop off the F.
We eked it out of that word.
So this was, in the 1960s, like homosexuality was only partially legalized in like 1967 or something. So this Polari language functioned as a source of, pleasure and enjoyment and communication, but it also was necessary because of the persecution of gay people.
Just speaking of, we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of equal marriage in Massachusetts, and tomorrow on the show, we're going to have the two people from Northampton who were part of the lawsuit that made that legal. So I'm glad that we don't have to use only Polari. However, these words are super fun. My very gay 19-year-old son is always cluing me into the latest and greatest hip words in gay culture so that I don't feel left out.
That's awesome.
I have not heard him use zhuzhes, but there was the opening to Saturday Night Live was all about mother, which I believe we have discussed on before, where they're, especially I think in gay culture, people are declared to be mother. And Maya Rudolph was on the eve of Mother's Day declared not to be just a mother,
But mother.
but mother.
But Maya, look, you're not just a mom. You're mother.
I'm your mother. Maya! Not now, child. Mother is mothering.
Right on both counts.
I think so, absolutely.
She's amazing.
I have to clarify here that Polari is itself, it's actually a smaller thing than you're making it out to be.
Yes.
Not all gay slang is Polari.
Yes.
Polari is a very particular kind of argot. It's not everything.
But zhuzh is from this?
Yes.
And is zhuzh a contemporary word?
Yes, zhuzh was brought really into contemporary use by Queer Eye.
The new Queer Eye or the original Queer Eye?
I think
the 2018 one.
Oh,
okay, so that's the new one, yeah.
Yes! Yes!
They're going to zhuzh up somebody's wardrobe and their house at the same time.
Yes. And now it's often applied to food, too. Like you're going to oh, this salad dressing is boring. I just got to zhuzh it up.
Well, they zhuzh up food on Queer Eye, too. Although it's debatable on how good a cook that guy is, in my opinion.
I'm Antoni Porowski, and today I'm going to make some żurek, or as Americans like to call it, Polish hangover soup.
Great show, though. Where is the earliest known use of zhuzh?
Our evidence dates it, the noun to 1995 and the verb to 1970. But again, these dates are only for written use. For the noun, it actually is that show, Round the Horn. Julian says, let's have a vada at his zhuzh, Mr. Horn. Clothing. That's translator's note.
Explain how that works as a noun. What does that noun mean in that sentence?
In that case, it just means style and appearance.
Okay.
It's not quite the same use, right? Let's
Gotcha.
have a vada. A vada is a look. Let's have a vada at his zhuzh.
Zhuzh works there like style in both, can work there as both verb and noun. You zhuzh something up, or like we've got him at his zhuzh, at his style.
Yeah. And then also the oldest verb one I see here is a zhuzhy queen, is a grand queen. To zhuzh up is to get ready.
Luckily,
So again,
they put the definition right in that sentence for you.
That's very helpful as a lexicographer when you're looking for good example sentences.
So when you're coining your new words in published and edited texts, include a definition so that future Merriam-Webster editors will be able to know exactly what you meant.
Yeah, and also if you could just leave out a lot of other extraneous stuff, that would be helpful too. So do you two use the word zhuzh?
Yes.
No, not yet. I'm not opposed to it like you're the opponents of this recent word of the day from Merriam-Webster, but it just hasn't clicked in my brain in a way that I want to use it yet.
Yeah, it's not part of my idiolect, but I really like it. It's such a nice little
It is a quick and
onomatopoetic word, you
Yeah.
know, like it's got a nice energy to it.
It is a quick and easy way to explain to someone that something needs to be improved a little bit.
Yeah, we had to bump you from your regular Wednesday segment because we had to go to the zhuzhed up Iron Horse.
We're like, let's zhuzh up your potato salad a little bit. It's kind of lacking.
Raisins, right? That's the key.
For y'all.
I know. You should see the withering look I'm getting right now.
I believe it.
Khalees in her own zhuzh, giving me a withering look.
One more thing about Polari that I thought was really funny. So this writer, Paul Baker, is the one I mentioned who's written this book called Fabulosa. He writes, in February 2017, an evensong in Polari was performed at Westcott House in Cambridge as a way of sending an inclusive message to LGBT people. Part of the translated version reads, Fabinas be to the Anti and to the Homi Chavi and to the Fentabulosa Fairy. Some members of the audience were upset by this and complained, resulting in a bit of a media storm and apologies having to be made. There were divided opinions about whether Polari had a place in a religious ceremony and whether the reaction was over the top.
I mean, like, it's here now, clearly, but this was pretty specifically Britain.
Oh, yes. And it's not here. I wouldn't say that it is here. I would say that there are words that have been borrowed from it.
Right.
But it is a very particular British argot, and that has pretty much died out. You would have to really spend a lot of time with people who are speaking it to really be able to use it fluently.
Well, I love this Polar. I can't wait to learn more about it. And I think maybe I will incorporate zhuzhes into my vernacular because of its history, and it's just kind of fun.
It's fun to say. It's really just, it's pleasant on the tongue.
Zhuzh.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad I could zhuzh up your vocabulary for you.
And everybody can zhuzh up their cooking a little bit.
Yeah, right. Thanks as always, Emily Brewster.
Oh, you're so very welcome.
If you've got a linguistic question for the Word Nerd, you can send it our way. thefab413@nepm.org. It's such a busy week that we had hoped to maybe do a full-on segment about this, but we didn't want to let the anniversary go unnoticed.
Without saying anything at all.
Yeah, it's the 150th anniversary of the Great Mill River Flood on May 16th, 1874. The sudden collapse of the Williamsburg Dam in western Mass let loose a flood that swept away parts of Williamsburg, Skinnerville, Haydenville, and Leeds. It killed 139 people within an hour. It was the first major dam disaster in the U.S. And
we're number one.
Yeah, I guess. There's a bunch of events that are commemorating this. We were walking around the corner from the Iron Horse yesterday, the old Faces space in Northampton, and in the windows there is a display talking about the history of it. But if you go to historicnorthampton.org, you can see about all the happenings that are happening surrounding this flood. You may have
a lot of them this evening, so if you've got time and are hanging out around where the flood-affected areas were, you can see talks about floods happening in the area writ large. There's one specifically about the 1874 flood. There's concerts.
Floods past and present this evening at 5 with John Stinton and Gabby Immerman at Grow Food Northampton, where they were affected by floods last year. There is a talk by Eric Wheeler at the Social Hall at First Congregational Church in Williamsburg this evening. And there is it Weber?
Weber.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Well. And then, you love getting corrected live on the radio. There's nothing quite like it. Thanks. And there is a bunch of events happening over the course of the weekend. If you can find them all if you go to historicnorthampton.org, the 150th anniversary of that Mill River flood.
And there are also some other things happening a little bit later in the month that are connected to this as well. So if you are unable to make some of the rest of the events, there's already been a bell cascade and a couple of other things that have happened today. But if you're looking forward to some of the events happening this evening and are unable to do it, there are other things happening throughout the month to commemorate the event.
Tomorrow on the Fabulous 413, we'll talk with one of the couples who helped usher in universal marriage into the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Northampton's Heidi and Gina Norton-Smith.
We will hear live music from Aaron McKeown, who you hear right now, and Spouse, who do our theme song, before their sold-out double bill at the Iron Horse, new and improved.
And a stripped-down Thunderdome at Bottle O in Northampton tomorrow.
Thanks to the tireless Fabulous 413 tech team, I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. We'll see you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.
Perhaps after you give?
Yeah.